Welcome to another DK Custom Products video. My name is Dwayne and this is Kevin. And we're going to go into detail about a subject that a lot of people have questions about, and in fact answer one of our good friends' questions directly. So this is a follow-up to a comment we got, and I'll read it to you guys. I'm beginning to think it's impossible to run these M8 engines at a cooler temperature.
Yeah, and it can be challenging.
It can.
And what I want to do is a video that is a common sense approach to cooling your Harley. Everybody rides differently. Everybody lives in different climates.
Yep.
Everybody has a different bike. Obviously, if you have a 114 M8, air-cooled, not twin-cooled, in a lightweight, like a street bob.
Yeah.
And then you have that same exact engine in a freewheeler that weighs almost twice as much as a street bob.
Yeah.
The engine's going to get hotter in the freewheeler.
Yeah.
So there's just a whole plethora of details that can make one bike run hotter than the other. And then, of course, the tolerances that Harley uses. Some bikes come from the factory with more blow-by than other bikes.
That's right, yeah.
And some people, I mean, there's just so many different things. So the common sense approach is to go to our why and how to cool down your twin cam and Milwaukee 8 engine. We'll put the link to that in the description below. We'll also put a link to the video series up in the corner here.
That was a multi-part series we did a couple of years ago.
I think 17 videos. So the common sense approach, and this is what I use on my bikes, and this is what I recommend to every customer, because if you do everything on the list, it's thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And some people might need to spend that much money to get their bike cool, but many people don't have to spend anywhere near that much. So if you go to the very start of the list starts with free and low cost, inexpensive, under 100. The very first one doesn't cost anything.
That's right.
So what I recommend, and this is what I do, which is why I recommend it, okay, is that you start with the first thing on the list, you do it. You see if it cools it down, how much it cools it down, and if it cools it down enough for you. And if it doesn't, go to the next thing. And then you just work your way down the list one at a time. And when the bike is cool enough for you, you might have only spent $200.
Yeah.
The bike might be cool enough for you after doing the first 3 or 4 things that cost a couple $100, and then you're good to go.
That's right. And what I say is, it's really important that you collect some data. You know, find out what your oil temperatures are to see if you even need a full oil cooler, oil filter relocation, supplemented with billet aluminum. Some people may just need an oil cooler, or perhaps some people just need moderately, the oil temps are supposed to be 230. If you're at 240, an oil filter relocation will do the trick. That's all you need for oil temps. So you don't need to spend thousands of dollars if all you need to spend is a few $100s.
Yeah.
So always collect data and see where you're at and see where you need to be.
And so that is a video we did, that there are 2 different temperatures that we use. Yeah. We put that video up in the corner here. We measure oil temperature and we measure engine temperature. Yep. And in the video above, we show how to measure the oil temperature, how to measure the engine temperature. And then as you do the mods, as you do the different mods, you see if you get it where your oil's never going over 230, you're golden.
That's right.
If it's a twin cam and your engine temperature's never going over 230, you're golden. With the M8, again, the oil temperature 230, but the engine temperature 250, 260 is the top that you want to be seeing. So you just go down the list of things, doing one at a time until you get to the temperature, the target optimum temperatures. I have here in front of me, I'm not going to read the whole email, but I have an email from a customer who had spent about $1,000 doing different things. And by the way, these things that lower the temperature also improve performance. So the fact that he spent about $1,000, it wasn't just to lower the temperature. He was also improving his performance. He was also improving his miles per gallon. So there were multiple benefits to it. But even after he'd spent $1,000 and he listed all the things he'd done, he still was getting temperatures. His oil was still going over 230. His engine, it was an M8. His engine temperature was still going up into the 290s, 300s. But looking at his list, I saw that he sort of bounced around. He didn't go through the list that I said to, start with the least expensive and work your way up. He actually did some of the most expensive things first, bypassing some of the less expensive things that are good for a 15 to 20 degree drop in temperatures. So that's why, even if you want to go, even if, say, the oil filter relocation is an more expensive mod, you might want to do that not for the heat so much, but just for the ease of changing your oil,
that's right?
So I'm not saying, I mean, it's still free. We still live in a free world, so you can do whatever you want. My recommendation is just to go down the list from top to bottom. But if you want to do some of the others, but when looking at his list, he had done some of the more expensive. He hadn't done some of the less expensive. Then he had one thing that he hadn't done that was a free thing. He had fork fangs on the front forks of his bike. Well, when you have fork fangs, if you don't change anything, if the bike's stock, bone stock, and you put fork fangs on, you've increased your temperature by 20 degrees. You've increased your oil temperature and your engine temperature. Engine temperature is going to go up by 20 degrees with those fork fangs. Conversely, if you take them off, temperature is going to go down 20 degrees.
That's right.
So if you're at 280 and you want to get down to 250, 260, and you have fork fangs, literally just remove the fork fangs.
Right. There's other, it's nice to have fork fangs so you can cut some on that wind buffeting, but there's other ways to do it that's not going to increase your engine temps exponentially.
They're going to decrease, like with the cooling deflector wings.
And talking about the cooling deflector wings, they're moderately inexpensive. The cooling deflector wings paired with the tank lift give you a pretty good end result. And to touch on what Kevin was saying earlier about starting with the lower cost mods, the cooling deflector wings with tank lift, that's under $200. It's under $200 for that combo.
Cooling deflector wings catches the air coming forward and directs it straight down onto the engine. And it just accentuates what the tank lift is already doing. It's just forcing that air along the engine, cooling it down. It also is redirecting air. Not as much air comes up and buffets the rider glasses and helmet.
And they're good for upwards of 20 degrees lower engine temps.
Yeah, 18 on the low end, 25 on the high end.
An electric cooling fan gets you about the same result, around about 20, a little more, a little less, depending how fast or slow you're going, ambient climate and all that. But they're exponentially more expensive.
And harder to install.
Harder to get. It's an electronic component. And a lot of people don't like the look of them. So for a fraction of the cost, you can get damn near a good end result. Now, some bikes may need both. Like if you have one of these...
My Tri-Glide needs both.
Exactly. Some of them need both. But you don't really know that unless you start small and work your way up. Right. And I promise you, it feels a lot better to spend $150 than it does $600 to get the same result.
Now, a few little exceptions that we want to put in here. Go through the list. I can't recommend it strong enough. It's the common sense approach is just to go through the list from the least expensive to most. But there's a few other things that aren't in here. You may be having a sumping problem.
Yeah.
Now, on the newer bikes, you probably not. But the older bikes, you may have a sumping problem. When you're sumping just a little, not enough for it to damage the engine, but sumping actually creates heat because the engine is working against itself, plowing through that oil.
That's right.
So you may be having a sumping problem. Your cylinders may be worn and you may not be getting good ring seal. And so again, that's an inefficiency that's going to create heat. The more inefficiency you have, the more excessive heat you're going to have.
It's very hard to overcome inefficiency. Right. Like it's very possible that you could do every single cooling mod known to man and your bike still run excessively hot because it would fail a leak down test.
Right.
So
fail a leak down test, fail a compression test. It might be sumping. Obviously, if you're still running an stock air cleaner, stock exhaust, both of which are very restrictive, that creates heat. So I can't recommend strong enough to take the common sense approach and just go one item at a time and go through it until you get the bike to where you want it to be.
That's right.
So it's not an impossible thing. The hard pill for some people to swallow is that they do all or most of the things and the bike is still too hot. Then they do a leak down test and they find out that they're having, 15, 20, 25% of leak down, and they don't want to accept that that's actually
right.
causing
They're like, well,
a
this
problem.
is a new bike. How could it
Yeah.
be? It's only a year old, but man, it
But
happens.
It happens. I mean, I was thinking this morning, I mentioned it to Dwayne right before we started videotaping. My first bike that Harley rebuilt the engine under warranty because of excessive heat. Too much heat. The bike had been, Mary and I had ridden all summer, all around the country, two up, loaded, and we got back and I'm going, man, this bike is dogging out. It wasn't blue smoke. It wasn't, eating oil, but it was just felt so doggy. I took it in there and it failed the leak down test, and Harley gave me a new, that's back when they were doing remanufactured engines. They gave me a remanufactured new engine, absolutely free because of heat damage. That was 19 years ago.
Yeah.
When that happened, I just thought it was an anomaly. It was a one-off thing. But then about 3 or 4 years later, it happened to another bike of mine where Harley gave me a new engine, no cost. It was free. It was under warranty. It had been heat damaged. And at that point, I realized this is a pattern. These bikes starting in 07 have serious heat challenges. And that's what got DK into so many different things, because we're about making the bikes the best they can be for us, and then whatever parts we develop for that, we share and we put on our website because other people may like them. But that's when we really started delving into how to get rid of this excessive heat that is literally engineered into the Harley design, partly because, well, probably mostly because of the EPA, but also partly because of Harley wanting to pinch pennies on stuff.
Yeah.
And also wanting to keep the same aesthetic, but produce more and more power out of the old V-twin design.
Here's a weird thing that I don't think, and I can't think of anything like this. If you guys can think of something, leave us a comment below. I can't think of any other automotive manufacturer that the more expensive the model, or the more top of the line the model, the more help it needs. Think of that. Think of a fully dressed Tri-Glide Ultra. It pretty much needs every cooling component you can think of. It's going to need some head cooling. It's definitely going to need oil cooling. It doesn't come with an oil cooler. You go in a dealership, that's the most expensive bike you can buy. You go buy a Sportster, it's bulletproof. You don't need a damn thing for the most part. So that's a weird situation. And again, I can't think of another automotive manufacturer that is that way.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Someone was talking the other day, either on YouTube or the forum, about, man, they were complaining about Harley and about how, why would you spend $25, $35, $40, even $50,000 on a bike that you're immediately going to have to do a bunch of mods to get it cooled down or to get it comfortable. And, my wife has an F350, a 2020 F350 that she purchased new. Mm-hmm. We have more money in mods on that F350 than we do on my Tri-Glide. And I have virtually every mod that DK makes is on my 2019 Tri-Glide. But we literally have more money in mods on her truck because we wanted, it doesn't come, I mean, it seems like a silly thing, but it doesn't come with mud flaps.
Yeah.
Okay? It doesn't come with a bed liner. It doesn't come with anything to cover the bed in case you want to have stuff in there. It doesn't come with seat cover. There's just a ton of things that we wanted on her truck that it just doesn't come with. That you would think. And the truck costs more than the Tri-Glide. I mean, it's not, an F350 dually diesel is not an inexpensive vehicle.
No.
But still, we put thousands of dollars into it to get it how we want it.
Right. And the other side of that coin, of that comment, we see that comment all the time. Why would you buy a Harley if you also got to dump this amount of money in there? The cool thing about a Harley is you can do that.
The reason that Harley Davidson is as successful as they are is they produce a motorcycle that appeals to the masses. And even in its stock form, it's a kind of a blank palette for people to have their own input on how they like it. Of course, oatmeal comes plain, but it also comes in flavors. Not everybody likes strawberry. Not everybody likes blueberry. The grips that I like might not be grips that you like because of hand size, the way that a bike sounds. I get that all the time. I don't know why Harley wouldn't just go ahead and make it sound this way. Well, what sounds good to you may not sound good to something else.
There's 50 other DK custom companies out there that sells aftermarket parts. So if you want to customize your bike, you can do it. That's what I love about a Harley. You can always find something to do to it. It never ends. You know, if you can't leave well enough alone, the Harley Davidson is the perfect motorcycle for you.
You know, we did a video on that subject, and it was why is Harley so successful, put up in the corner. And go watch that video. But Harley, part of their mentality is to build these bikes sort of bland or cookie cutter,
Yeah.
except for the CVOs,
Yeah.
right? Because they know that people are going to want to
Yeah.
make it their own. And so, you know, a lot of people complain, we should have this, should have that. Well, the thing that makes you more comfortable on your Softail might not make me more comfortable on my Softail. So you're going to do one mod, I'm going to do
That's
a
right.
different mod. So watch that video that we put up in the corner about why Harley's so successful, because they purposely make these bikes so that you can make them your own.
That's right. Now, this goes back to the old saying, if you ever start to feel useless, just think of the guy at the Harley factory that installs the exhaust. Because that's always coming off.
Yeah.
Now, if you have any questions at all about anything you've seen in this video, shoot us an email to support@dkcustomproducts.com. Leave us a comment below or give us a call, 662-252-8828. We have an entire customer service team ready to help you out.
Y'all ride safe out there.